Please bear with me. This is the first time I'm doing this presentation in front of everyone. Wow, there's so many of you. So good morning. As introduced, my name is Shania Hall. I've been in the industry for 7 years, and 5 of those years have been with Sumo Digital. I'm one of the concept artists who worked on Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the game. I concepted most of the outfits you see in the game for the victim characters. Has anyone played Texas Chainsaw Massacre here? Oh, okay, quite a few. So on to the next bit. This presentation is a mix of topics pertaining to fashion in games and what it means to be a concept artist. I will be talking about how numerous elements that help me with the ideation process of clothing, such as era, how environment affects character, and much more. The presentation is not about techniques or what software you should be using. It's how to give you a basis for generating ideas. Then I'll talk briefly about what I believe it means to be a concept artist. I will also give mentions at the end slide of useful links for tools that have helped me as a concept artist towards the end of the talk. With that, let's get started with, what is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a horror movie set in 1974. The game itself is set before the events of the movie in the year 1973. It has a diverse cast of newly created playable characters, along with Leatherface and the original family members of killers. Forewarning, there's a trailer here. It's got blood and gore in it, so bear with me. I think it's only like a minute and a half. Close your eyes if you're not to, because of blood.
I need to keep moving.
This'll catch him. Think what's coming to you now? Oh, that's it. I have to keep going.
Just to play him for the boys and
Look who we got here. Got yourself in some trouble, didn't you? If you just listen.
I can do this.
And that was Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the game. Now, on to the most important section of this talk. It's got the most content in it. It's about era matters. So, the decade. The decade is 1970s. When looking at fashion of that era, it's essential to capture the essence of that era, as it was such a pivotal time in both cultural, social, political, and fashion history. To really understand and recreate the styles of the 1970s, we had to delve deep into the references from that time, from the movies, TV shows, musicians that shaped the decade, to the broader cultural movements that influenced personal style. The fashion of that time was a perfect reflection of social dynamics. It's crucial to also understand that the 70s was a time of change, specifically politically and socially. The fashion of this time wasn't just about clothes, it was about expressing identity and freedom and rebellion. We reference various films, television shows from that time, such as The Brady Bunch, later shows like That 70s Show and The Get Down that emulates the 70s era. which played a huge role in encapsulating the spirit of that time. So other notable mentions, Sanford and Sons just there, and you can tell where the Brady Bunch is on the stage. And The Get Down just in the top corner. It's a really, really good TV series. And yeah, that 70 shows, mention them twice. Oh, and Starsky and Hutch. We also looked at American journals and archives that had references to pictures taken in the actual 1970s. A lot of these images was used in the creation of the garments that we made for the characters. Though these references, through these references, we could see the iconic looks that represented different aspects of the society, like the laid-back hippie style, peasant blouses, and the bell bottoms that dominated the 70s. These shows and references gathered helped define how people perceived the 70s, especially in the team. It helped us a lot to gather inspiration from that era. Musicians played an enormous role in defining the fashions of the 70s. Artists like the Bee Gees, Fleetwood Mac, and ZZ Top weren't just known for the music, their fashion choices became a symbol of that era. The Bee Gees, with their turtleneck, large colors, and bell-button-infused looks, helped define the aesthetics of the earlier part of the decade. Bell-buttons and shiny patterned large open collar shirts were everywhere. Fleetwood Mac, on the other hand, leaned more into the bohemian side of the 70s, with flowing fabrics, long skirts, and distinctly earthy, mystical vibe. Stevie Nicks became a style icon with her earthreal witchy outfits, often made up of long shawls, scarves, flowing dresses, and layered accessories. ZZ Top, though, who we referenced quite a lot because he's from Texas, they're from Texas, through more associated with rock, brought a rugged southern style to the table with their cowboy boots and denim-heavy outfits, showing that the 70s fashion just wasn't all about, the glitz, glamour, and disco and all that. It's had a really gritty side to it. These are what I like to call pre-influences, the OGs. But beyond these big names, this era also borrowed heavily from earlier style movements, while laying the foundation for trends that would come in later decades. So remnants from the 1960s, counterculture still held strong. So, like hippie movement, save the world, all that type of stuff still held strong going into the 70s. To really nail this part of the 70s and recreating its fashion and style, it's vital that we used reference again. So this is about references important as well, from the 70s specifically, not just pictures and images, listening to the music of that time, reading books from that time, just getting into the vibe to try and get into the spirit of the 70s. So the Texas Chainsaw Massacre itself is set in the 1974, as I said before. In the game, in a sense, it's a prequel. So it's set a year before, so we had to pull a lot of elements from the 60s still into it. The movies and culture icons from that era play perfectly into what we were trying to design. We tried to embody the ethos and rebellion and freedom that was so central to fashion of the 70s. So I'm going to move on to how the actual 1970s was a period of significant cultural change. There were a lot of counterculture that I mentioned before, so movements promoting values like peace, love, and freedom. This ideology deeply influenced fashion, as young people rejected the conservative styles of their parents, embraced more relaxed, non-conformist clothing. Movements like this promoted hippie, peace, loving style of earthy tones and natural fabrics, relaxed flowing silhouettes were everywhere. Bell-bottom pants, which had first made an appearance in the 60s, became a wardrobe staple for both men and women in the 70s. Wide-leg trousers were worn with platform shoes, which not only added height, but also contributed to the exaggerated, elongated silhouettes that became synonymous with the time. That bled into the 70s. So another counterculture movement, the feminist movement, also played a crucial role in encouraging women to challenge traditional gender roles. Clothing became less restrictive, and women opted for pantsuits, jeans, and other unisex garments, that blurred the lines between men's and women's fashion. Another aspect of the 70s fashion that should not be overlooked is the influence of African American culture. So the rise of funk, soul music brought with a distinct fashion style. Musicians like James Brown and later the influence of early hip-hop culture brought a new vibrant energy to the fashion scene. So like afros, I used to have an afro, I miss it so much. Dashikis and the platform shoes became staples in many wardrobes. This era also saw the rise of black pride and rights, which more people embracing their natural hair and cultural attire as a means of rejecting European beauty standards of the time and expressing personal identity. So notable mentions, Gloria Steinem, Dorothy Pitman Hughes up there, Jimi Hendrix, James Brown, and Bretty Friedan, all original influences that, you know, not the IG or the TikTok ones, but back in the day ones. Ooh, I went a bit too far there. My last slide of this content of Era Matters. So we referenced the original 1970 Texas Chainsaw Massacre film as well. That is a mouthful. So this is just part of my reference. I didn't want to just bombard it on the board because I got to move on. So we gathered a lot of images from Pam, Kirk, Sally, Franklin, Cherry throughout the project. So they're the original gang from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. So in conclusion for this, when capturing 1970s fashion, it's essential to understand the various cultural movements and influences that shaped it, from the laid-back bohemian style to the hippie flower power and peace. And the fashion of this decade was as diverse and dynamic as the people who wore it. Drawing from TV shows, movies, musicians, and designers of the time allows us to truly capture the essence of the 70s, fashion and bring it into modern context. Just as people of that era used fashion as a tool to express individuality and identity. So for this, I'm going to use Judy from the game as an example to explain the ideation process of how integral sketching, referencing, mood boards is to creating outfits in games. Like most artwork to be produced, a brief description of the character bio is always a great place to start. So this was provided to us by Gunn. Julie is a Southern California native and fits every bit of what that description might bring to mind. So her style is sand, surf, and sports lifestyle. Julie's style that I wanted to portray on her is all about her agileness, sporty and nimble self. In her actual gameplay, she's all about that. Like, her special ability is to basically become fast, endurance, and all that stuff. So with that, I set out with emulating the 70s on her using color palettes of like earthy tones, which was very popular throughout the 70s, but more specifically with Julie, that was her kind of color palette. I made sure when gathering references for Julie, it matched her free spirit and sand surf lifestyle. When designing period-appropriate clothing for her, especially in the 70s setting, it's essential to deeply consider that cultural and fashion trends of the time as showcased in the previous topic. So all the era stuff plays back into this. Her style needs to reflect that agility and sporty nature, so I made sure she was always like, never like in too much flowy outfits or anything like that. She's kind of like, she needs to be able to move like within the game. She needs to be able to be a part of the environment, but still able to be nimble and get through everything. So she's got a very relaxed aesthetic that defined the 70s. Not that I didn't try to put flowy garments on her, but the character team will probably have a nervous breakdown if I did that. So here are some of Julie's reference mood boards. Mostly this mood board here is to capture the earthy tones of the 70s and just her general vibe. To emulate the 70s, I think this is like a crucial process in guiding concept artists, just to have all this here for you. So the fashion of the time was all about freedom and individuality and connection to nature, especially through the use of fabrics like denim and suede, and colors like brown, greens, and oranges. When designing for Julie, it's important to pull these elements to match her free-spirited and active lifestyle. So her flowy silhouette, which I did get in there, was her bell-bottoms in the end and her loose top. So these are some of the sketches that I did for her initial outfits for the DLC content. So gathering all this stuff, like all the references from real 70s fashion icons, and combine them together with Julie's bio, the final design can truly represent the character's world and the spirit of the era. Capturing these nuances ensures that the character feels authentic and integrated into the 1970s environment, making the clothing not just a costume, but a key storytelling element. So I used her initial color scheme from her original outfit in the same earth tones to present to the wider team as to which outfit should get the go-ahead and be chosen for final creation and signed off. And these are the back views of Julie as well. With that, I'm going to go into restrictions and technical stuff that basically when creating these outfits. Creating these outfits, sometimes there's like technical and costly restrictions, so I must like work more closely with the character team to figure out how we can bypass these issues. One of these issues was in fact that these characters, when in game, don't always have every body part visible, and what I mean by that is anything in red, so this is a helpful slide, especially on this project, we were very time constrained, so we couldn't like set up more systems for this. But anything red doesn't exist, so the game's character model, for example, Julie and Anna, so there's Julie, Anna's right next to her, they have no thighs, skin, mesh, nothing's below those trousers. So when you think about designing for these with these restrictions, I can't just give Julie shorts, unfortunately, because then the character team will then have to pull back the base mesh and then redo all that stuff, and then that's more time. So we try to alleviate that by keeping within the bounds of what we can do here. So another example, Connie has no pelvis, so it's okay to add stuff to Connie because she's like the least, she's the victim here who hasn't got that much of a problem. You can actually add trousers to her. You can't make her shorts any shorter. She's, because then she'll just be missing half her thighs at the top. She'll have no, she'll just be a floating pair of legs. It wouldn't look nice. I understand this at the time was a method to prevent clothing from clipping during the certain animations. So you can see at the end as well, Leyland and Sunny, they're very restricted to what you can do with them. Didn't mean to go that far. So especially with Sunny, for example, if I designed a shirt that was just a bit shorter up here, I have to kind of think of, is that worth it? And what I mean is, why would I just design a shirt just to have the character team just to give that sliver of skin to get back into the game? That's just time-consuming. You don't need to do that. So I'd probably keep to the restrictions of what I've got here. So with that, I'm going to go back to her downloadable content outfits. We end up choosing Sketch 1, just highlighted in red there. With a mix of photo bashing, I use real images, such as creases from real trousers, high-res textures. I then began the process of painting these textures onto Julie's DLC outfit. So the outfit you are seeing here is one I created for her. And on the next slide, I'm going to show you some recolors as well. But to make the individual elements of this outfit, I have to gather things like the patterns. I recreated a pattern here. I have to make all that again. As to, not just steal from the references that I'm gathering. To photobash these elements, when you have all this stuff together, ready at hand, it makes concepting and rendering so much easier. So one of the things I like to do is lay out everything I have on PureRef, that's a reference imaging board, just have everything there. It makes my life so much easier. Also, I can also give that to my director and be he can pull from there and be yeah, maybe not that section, maybe this, have this, yeah. Yeah. I also like to make sheets like this. So these are like reference callouts. I can give this to the character team, and it just makes the production flow a lot more easier. They can come back and ask questions, but at least they have all this to go from. I also like add links to like the actual websites that I'm using. That's helpful a lot. So I'll probably embed links, and when I give that to them, they can actually get the high-res photos to look from and model and create garments that way. For these, I just use, like for the color scheming, I didn't do this for every character, but this is an example. I use like a normal triadic color scheme. So, you know, it's equally on the color wheel. So for instance, yellow, blue, and red. So that's what I used for this. I did this on purpose for Julie because she's very earth-toned. So one of the problems with that, I wanted to avoid harmonious color schemes. So I didn't want like, you know, green next to blue and then make a purple one. It just doesn't look that visible in game. It doesn't look that nice when you put them all together. It's kind of like just too samey. It's to avoid that problem. I also had to make like pattern variants for Julie. So here are some of the pattern variants. And what I mean pattern variants is that we change the whole material to things like jeans. We give those recolors as well. And here are some other examples of just creating these outfit sheets, along with references for the character team. Yeah. I do that for like every character like I create. But here's some like loads of color swatches, loads of like repattern designs and things like that. So I kind of like made over 50 outfits, including recolors. I didn't even realize. I was kind of surprised by that. My face became like a Teams meeting, one meeting, because I couldn't process it. I was just sitting down there on the floor, just like, what? Like, what's going on? What do you mean I made 50 outfits? When was this? I didn't even remember. Yeah, with that, I'm going to move on, because I just realized I haven't got a lot of minutes left. Environments drive character. What do I mean by that? So when creating period-appropriate clothing like this for this setting, for the Texas setting, it's essential to consider the environment and how it actually shapes both the character creation and the clothing. The heat demands functionality over form, meaning characters need clothing that keeps them cool and comfortable while still reflecting the fashion trends of the time. In this case, understanding the lifestyle and climate is just as important as the style references that you gather. As an example, you wouldn't see any of the victims running around in like thick winter jackets and scarves. So I always keep this in mind when making the characters' clothing. Environments need fashion too. So even the smallest textile details, like wallpaper, can often go unnoticed. Not all wallpaper is made of paper. So many are crafted from fabrics like linen or silk. One of the key challenges we faced recreating the original wallpaper from the movie, from the actual house, since we didn't have the copyright for the exact design, I created a whole new version that captures the essence of the original. While it's an entirely new design, people could still recognize it from the film, so it resembles it. Yeah. So I'm going to segue into personal project. Bearing in mind, keeping all that information I've just unloaded at you guys, I use this same process when creating outfits for my own personal projects. I still like to explore new ways to create an experiment with clothing, like I'll go into Marvelous Designer, or I'll use Simply add-ons for Blender, like Simply Clothing add-ons. I always have like my initial pipeline in creating these outfits, so I can keep workflow consistencies when switching from work to personal work. It just kind of like gets me in the flow. It also motivates me when I know like how to do something. It just creates this kind of like 6-hour period when I'm like super zoned and focused into making something. It just makes life a little bit, yeah. As an example, this project here is called Last Summer at Camp. It's a classic / a horror story that takes place at a summer camp and features a group of counselors who are caught unawares by a mass killer at a summer camp party. So So once again, I applied the whole environment drive character to my personal work. It helps me identify elements that I want in a character, and with ideation generation, I find this a key part to the process to not accidentally design in a vacuum. So having all these references and environments that kind of like tell me what this character is all about, it gives the character a background. You don't necessarily need to like draw a whole environment to explain your character. You can pull references from offline just to get that basis. So for example, this is Party Dare. She is the antagonist I'm currently working on, and when creating her, the environment references I gathered was what actually fueled her design. So you can see deerheads, a family of creepy masked animal people, and mounted deerheads up there, another one there. That scene there is the one that actually drove Party Deer. I thought it would be really cool if she was this like antagonist character who's grown up around the campgrounds, and she's like watching all these other kids, camp counselors having all this like great time, and she wants to join in too. However, her idea of fun is not the same as normal people's fun, so she comes to this party to try and establish a connection, but she can't get that connection because she's just a bit different. So her idea of fun is slashing, cutting, killing, hunting, and trapping people. So as always, sketching is important. I do this a lot. I've only put a small section of her stuff there. That does not come up good on the screen. Oh dear, sorry. So I make rough sketches of my ideas. Half of them are never fully defined. That's okay, I feel like, because it allows me to be more free with my work. And then later on, I can go in and really start refining the process, making it more detailed. I think that's the best way to think. I think the best way to think of sketches is like your visual notes. It kind of fuels your finalish product. It's like, a bit like maths. You've got the maths equation, gives you the answer. I think sketching is really important, and I think this process should never be missed. So, it's not always a costume. It's a reflection of the character's personality. Fashion can be personal and unique, but as always, it's forever changing. It's also cyclical, so it always comes back. So 70s fashion has come back again. Everyone's wearing wide-leg trousers again. Skinny jeans have made a disappearance. I've not seen them in a while. It can breathe life into character when you have this in the back of your head, like when you think about it. It vividly showcases who they are as an individual and who they are as a person. So is the character influenced by a particular era? Are they influenced by the 70s? Do they love a specific music genre and want to express that through their wardrobe? If so, don't hesitate to let their style shine through, or accessorize them with key pieces of things like band T-shirts or things like that. Remember, style and fashion tells a story, and it's an expression of character. So notable mentions up there, Bauhaus, Amy Winehouse, she's an example of cyclical fashion, so 1950s, 1960s coming back in. So she kind of modernized that. Audrey Hepburn with her Givenchy style. So when you see those presidential wives with their kind of clean cut and like demure outfits, that's what that's all about. And of course, the Supremes from the 70s with their glam 70s look. Okay, I find this one really important, and it helps me with creating outfits too. You often hear the terms form follows function or function follows form. However, clothes are a bit different. Form is what gives fashion that appeal. So think of, example, 70s flared pants. They're still practical. They still got their function. You're still agile in them. You can still get about in them. But they've got something to them. They've got that allure of that shape, the form. So I like to categorize these into like 3 sections. There's many ways to do this, but this helps me. So first is function itself, which embraces convenience of its primary purpose. So, for example, ski suits protect you from the snow. High-vis jackets help the visibility of the wearer. Functions and form. So the next one, functions and form, embraces convenience and visual appeal. Takes 70s bell bottoms, which I use as an example, you're still able to function in them. So I'm going to move on to how form itself can sacrifice the initial function of a garment. But it maximizes the appeal. Fake pockets. Oh my God. Why? I know why, but why? And people keep buying them, like, stop it. They don't stop selling them. So the reason why is because it's a non-conforming shape. That's the problem. So they want those to be really fitted to the person's silhouette. So the reason why fake pocket exists is because of that, and that it's less costly. You don't have to actually add more material to make that thing. So another example is non-conforming shapes, like this weird pear lady, spiky pear lady. She's from a runway show. How does she use her arms and hands? Like, what? So you've got to think about stuff like that when making outfits. Like, is it usable? Is it practical? Is it made for that scene and that environment? And another pet peeve of mine, which my sister wants one of these, I don't know why, shoulderless jumpers. Oh, jumpers are meant to keep you warm. So when you cut a big hole at the top, it defeats its original function of keeping you warm. So you've got to think about stuff like that when creating garments. So with all this, if you're stuck, you can always come back to using this as a guide. There's many things online that to do with form and function and how to apply it to clothing. So for example, how I use this, maybe the outfit can look a bit too over the top. So I might think, oh, maybe there's too much form, like spiky pear lady on the end, and that's how it's probably lost its initial function. I feel that when you combine function and form, which is the 70s is a great example, you can create believable outfits. So on to the last slide. We're getting there, guys, we're getting there. What it really means to be a concept artist. That's so pretentious when I say it out loud. Gosh. Most of the work you'll be producing will not always look glamorous, like pretty, glitzy. A lot of it's just going to be sketches. Probably the work you produce will look rough, even unfinished to your eyes. It's okay. It's expected. That type of work helps the wider team with idea generation. Remember, everything you produce is all your drawn notes that will fuel the finalish product. Here are some examples. I did get to render Sissy's motor and pestle in the end, but most of it's just really rough. That's not all the doors I created. There's like a lot more doors, a lot more locks, so many doors, so many, like, why? But a lot of this is writing in progress. It's okay. I feel like when it comes to software, just use whatever you can use. Pens, pencils, paints, whatever helps you get your ideas down. To me, all this process is 99% sketching and observation and research, and then it's 1% rendering, depending on, if you're doing a beauty piece, but most of it is this. I gain satisfaction from this. I gain satisfaction from creating in itself, which I feel is what the intended purpose of concept art is. And sketching and observing truly maximizes that feeling for me. It gives me that satisfaction. And just before I end the talk, these are some useful tools I use a lot when trying to get ideas out quick enough. So Blender, which is my main tool for environments, blockouts, materials, it's such an easy way just to get the perspective that you want. Also, you can get like body bases, add-ons, things for that to help you with, quick rendering out of a character. Draw on top of that. You don't need to just be starting from the base all over again. Just reuse assets. Free character creator model basis from Reillusion. So Character Creator 4, which is a program, they actually give out free character bases you can get from their website. You can use those in Blender, and there's actually an add-on that you can link to, and it's just a lot easier to use that. You can even pose and sculpt on the model without having to re-rig everything again. That's to Blender link, especially if you have that face 2 add-on, which basically you could take a picture of your face and it just puts it onto the character. It's great. So I don't have to keep searching the internet for faces for photobashing and stuff like that. This is so much easier. I feel like you can use any painting software of your choice just to map paint over those faces, makes it a lot more easier. You can get free Marvelous Designer for a year through Fortnite Creator Enrollment Program, which just makes life a bit easier and less stressful, so you don't have to pay that much money. So that's a great tool to use. And lastly, Humble Bundles, software bundles. If you ever strapped for assets and 3D things to be using, because as a concept artist, I don't create every single piece I need to use as a base, so I'm not just going to be I'm going to create a whole chair and it's going to take me an hour to create the chair. Now I'm going to get an asset offline, paint over that asset, change it so much just to make it look into something different, to get my ideas down quick enough. So you can get Humble Bundle softwares. They do them every single month. You can get 3,000 Unreal assets and things like that, and it makes life so much easier. Yeah. So that's the end of my talk about what it means, fashion and what it really means to be a concept artist.
Thank you for your talk. Very, very good that you're showing this approach of intelligently researching things, not just grabbing a load of pictures and bunging them together off Pinterest. You're actually, why is it this way? That's super, super important, and you clearly are very good at that research aspect. Kudos for that.
Thanks.
Do we have any questions? Oh, yes? Over here.
I've talked for so long. Did you know I did this?
Pretend Leatherface is coming after you.
15 minutes in the mirror, and I was like,
That's
oh my God, sorry. Hiya.
When designing a character or, a simple design, do you usually start with simple sketches or a description of what the character or the design should be?
I'm a very story-heavy based person, so I get a lot of my ideas from the content that's around me, from media. I could be watching American Horror Story one day, and I'll just be like, oh, I need to write this notes down. I need to start drawing, and then I write before I draw. I actually write what I want to make before I draw. I actually set the whole pages out before I draw. I'll be like, right, there's going to be about 3 heads I'm going to sketch, because if I go any more, I'm going to get fed up with just making heads over and over again on that day. And then I'll be like, that's going to be 2 outfits there, so I plan out my whole page. It just makes my life easier. But no, I do start with text a lot. Helps me keep that motivation. And then I go into the sketches. And then I start going into how I can visualize it, the vibe through 3D, for example, and then painting over. Yeah.
Any more questions? There's a question here at the front. Oh, there's a lot of questions.
I wasn't expecting this, sorry.
I wouldn't apologize for that presentation. It's very interesting.
It was very interesting, yeah. I was in general, it's me here, the short person in front.
Oh, sorry.
Don't worry, I'm used to
lights
it.
everywhere.
I am very short. I was interested in 2 things. In general, when it comes to concept art, how much do you think an art staff from an artist's perspective matters when it comes to concept artists? And also, would you think that showcasing that you can draw different materials and textures, do you think that is a valuable skill for concept artists to have?
So it's a valuable skill. However, when you do get hired as a concept artist, your boss already knows you can do that from what you've produced before. So you don't need to keep doing it again just to show them that you can do it. They already know you have that knowledge. So it's more about getting your ideas down. They already know you can do this when they hire you. So when you see rendered pieces, you make the really pretty things, they already know you can do this. They already know you've got a deep understanding of materials and how they're rendered out. They know this from the beauty pieces. So say you've got 4 of those beauty pieces on ArtStation, they already know. They're more, I feel for my company, they're more interested in, can they get this idea quick enough down on paper, and then they know you can do all the rest, yeah. I hope that answers.
We have time for one more question. I think your hand was up first behind you. There, yes.
Hi. When you're designing the concept art and like just getting the sorry, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
What am I trying to say? Do you have to adapt your content differently to like meet different markets? For instance, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a violent game. Do you have to like change the way the designs look, like with dismemberment or whatnot, when doing things for like Germany or Australia?
Oh, definitely, yeah. So, do you mean like in terms of style or like sorry, go on.
Like accommodating, changing your design to accommodate what needs to be done to pass.
Yeah, so like I'll be halfway through something and then like my lead will be like, stop. You just have to go on to the next thing. And those pieces, they're still relevant because they might help someone from the character team, and then they'll be like, oh, you did this, and I'll be like, yeah, but you can't use it, but maybe you can use that aspect from it. So you just have to kind of like stop what you're doing, move on to the next thing. So there's definitely always like adapting and changing. A lot of my like work, especially in pre-production, just gets like not thrown out the door. It's just like it just gets pushed to the side because we're going in a new direction, and that's completely fine. It's all that stuff you make before is what's fueling the new direction, because it gets rid of. It kind of gives everyone an idea of like what you don't want it to be, and then what you do want it to be. Does that answer the question?
Yes. Like,
I think your answers are great.
Oh, thank you.
And I still have questions. I'm sure the audience still has questions. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but you will be around, I imagine.
Yeah.
If people have questions, they can ask you. So please, a round of applause for Shania and her excellent presentation.